baseball fans, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? We got another full slate of news for tonight. We got a couple of signings here in the last couple of hours. Jock Peterson heading to the Arizona Diamondbacks. David Robertson heading to the Texas Rangers. What does this mean for Jordan Montgomery? Could there be implications towards a Jordan Montgomery return to Texas? Could this mean it's more likely he's going back to Texas? Or could it mean he's heading elsewhere? We'll talk about that. And what does this mean for Kenley, Jansen as the relief pitching market dwindles? Could a trade be on the horizon? How you doing, everyone? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Right around 150 people in the chat to start things off. How you doing, everyone? What is today? Is today Thursday or is it Wednesday? Is it Wednesday today? What is today? Today's Thursday. Hello, how you doing? Welcome. It is a Thursday night, and we have a few things to talk about tonight. And I just repeated it, I just said it in the intro, right? Got David Robertson, right? We got some Jock Peterson heading to the defending National League champions. I like that move. I think it's a great move for them. And for the Rangers, yeah, sure, good move for them. But I'm more intrigued about what it could mean for other things. What does this mean for Jordan Montgomery? We'll talk about it. We'll go look at the payroll for the Rangers. We've talked about the TV money issues before with the Texas Rangers. And now that they're signing David Robertson, what does this mean here? What does this mean? We'll get into it. And I'm going to break it down with Kenley Jansen as well. There's some stuff out there with Kenley Jansen, stuff that I have heard personally, and stuff that's kind of floating around out there as well. We'll dive into it. Everyone, thank you for stopping by. I'm seeing moderators in the chat. Zach, how you doing, my friend? A lot of familiar faces in the chat tonight. Everyone, we won't be here too long tonight because I will be joining Jim over on Ballcap Sports to do the Barreled Up podcast. We're looking to go at around 10 o'clock. I'm hoping I can get everything done by then. It might end up starting a little bit late, but immediately after tonight's show, I will be heading over to Ballcap Sports, and we will be doing the Barreled Up podcast, and we'll be talking pretty much about everything I've talked about here, basically. So you basically got two shows tonight, one here and one on Jim's channel as well. And everyone, go follow the Baseball Isn't Boring podcast with Rob Bradford. Man, Rob, if for some reason you get this shirt is so comfy. Oh my goodness. I know I am not affiliated with it. He is not paying me to advertise it. I just ordered one for myself because I thought it was a cool shirt. And it's comfy. It is comfy, man. So if you want one, go order it. Good podcast, too. Here we go, everyone. Let's get to it. If you can, hit that like button for us. Hit the bell. Make sure you share the show. And subscribe if you are new. Let's get to it. All right, so let's kind of get to these couple of signings that we got here tonight. Let's start with Jock Peterson. And a one-year deal heading to the Diamondbacks. I really like this move. I really do. Now, it's been rumored for a while now that the Diamondbacks were looking to add a bat, someone that can DH. And with Jock Peterson, that's probably where you're going to see him for the most part. And then, maybe play some outfield as well. Not great defensively over the last couple of years in the outfield, but he can go out there, right, if a guy needs a day or whatever. It's a lefty bat, too, so you can mix in the platoons here and there. Jock Peterson, to me, you're getting a bat, right, but you're also getting a clubhouse guy, too. And I really like the way the Diamondbacks are coming together right now. I'm looking at this team, and this is a very good looking Diamondbacks team, if you ask me. Not just because they're coming off a World Series appearance. I really like the way this team looks. If these guys can live up to the expectations that they have for this year, as well as, at least repeat close to the numbers that they had last year, as well as some of these younger guys like Alek Thomas, maybe taking a step forward. I mean, who knows what we're going to get out of Corbin Carroll this year? I mean, the season that he had last year, I almost, in a way, feel bad for him because he just set the bar so high. What's going to happen with Carroll in year 2? Are we going to see a bit of regression there? Who knows? But, hey, that dude's a stud. I expect him to have a really good year. Another year under Gabriel Moreno's belt. What's going to happen with him in year 2? Ketel Marte looked like he finally got back to his form last year. Walker finally getting the power back on last year. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. heading back. I really like, and then the addition of Eugenio Suarez as well. I really do like the way this lineup is starting to look. And you also added Eduardo Rodriguez this offseason. Bullpen, maybe you could add something to this bullpen. Sure. But I still like the way it looks, right? Sewald and Ginkel in the back. Could they maybe add one more piece to this bullpen? Sure. But I'm going to be honest with you. I really like the way the Diamondbacks are looking. I think they have had a very underrated offseason, in my opinion. I mean, when we look at all the moves that they've made, you added Eugenio Suarez. You added Eduardo Rodriguez for the rotation. Now you've added Jock Peterson. I love that the Diamondbacks didn't just sit on their hands after a World Series appearance. They went out there and said, you know what? We barely even made the playoffs last year. Let's make this team better. Let's bring some additions onto this team so that way, we don't have that bit of a scare at the end of the season like they did last year. At one point, they weren't even a wild card team. They were outside looking in, and then in the end, they found a way in, and hey, they got to the World Series. So it just shows if you just get in, anything can happen, even if you win under 90 games. So, hey, overall, I really, really appreciate what the Diamondbacks have done, especially after winning a World Series. And then with all the young talent they have coming up in the next few years, I think this Diamondbacks team is really set up for a lot of success. But let's talk about Jock Peterson. Now, when it came to Jock last year, a bit of a down year. He had some injuries, right? So as you can see, the slugging, the WRC plus, they were down from the previous year. He had a 146 WRC plus in 22, had a 521 slugging, the 23 home runs with the Giants, a very good offensive season. But you can see here, there was a bit of a dip, right? He missed about 13 less games than the previous year. So with Jock Peterson, this is a guy. He's had some years prior where, maybe he's been a little off, especially if you go back to that 2020 season, right? His batting average was under 190 that year. So I would expect, honestly, with Jock, you're probably going to see somewhere, in my opinion, I feel like you're going to see somewhere between like that 521 and the 416 slugging. I think you could see like a 450 slugging, right? I don't know. I like Jock Peterson. He's always been a guy. I feel like you don't have to worry about too much when it comes to the bat, and he is projected for a better season for next year. And actually, really quick, let me pull up the advanced numbers. I always forget to pull up the advanced metrics. Heading over to StatCast real quick. Oh, everyone, the new computer has officially arrived. I had to sign for it today, and I said it last night, and I'll say it again. Thank you, to anyone that's, donated, dropped a super chat, or even just watched, any video, right? All the revenue I always try to put back into the channel. So, yeah. So using those funds to help upgrade the computer, which has had some issues over the last a couple months, but hey, I appreciate it. But looking at Jock Peterson, and this is why I do think he is going to be fine for this coming year. You can still see a lot of reds here, right? Still hitting the absolute crap out of the ball, getting a lot of barrels. Expected batting average was looking really good. Jock Peterson has been a guy in the past where he does chase, he does swing and miss, strike out, but he always walks a lot. I feel like Jock Peterson was probably having a little bit of bad luck last year. And actually, really quick, if we go take a look at the BABIP, you can see here he had an under league average batting average on balls in play, right? 268. League average is around like 290 to 300. So I do expect Jock to have more success last year. And a 111 WRC plus is not bad at all. He's only going to be 32 next year. I think he's going to be fine. So I like the move for the Diamondbacks. overall, very solid. Could they add maybe one more piece for this bullpen? Yeah, why not? But, hey, I think the Diamondbacks, they're looking like they're in great shape for 2024. Let's move on here. Let's move on. And you know what? I'm trying to decide what story should I talk about next, right? Because I feel like, speaking of bullpens, I could go either way with the next story. Yeah, where do we want to go here? Where do we want? I'll go to the Rangers, right? The Rangers. Let's dive into this one. They just signed David Robertson, and this is really interesting to me. This is really interesting. I just put this on Twitter not too long ago, X, whatever the heck you want to call it. Can we please give it a new name? I hate the name X. Am I the only one that hates the name X? I don't know what it is. I can't get on board with it. It's like, I don't mind seeing it, but saying it is just weird. Am I the only one? Like, it feels better to say Twitter, but it looks better when you see X. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. Anyway, as for the Rangers, signing David Robertson, veteran guy, and if we go take a look at David Robertson for last year, overall, another solid season. I mean, this guy, he keeps, as Giraffenick Mark likes to say, he ages like fine wine, right? If we go take a look at the numbers from last year, remember he spent time with both the Mets and the Marlins. He got traded by the trade deadline. And at 38 years old, still putting up very good numbers. 62 games overall, 65 and a third innings pitched, ERA 3.03, FIP at a 3.55. And actually, with David Robertson, if you look here, he really improved on the walks. He was almost at 5 walks per 9 in 2022, and it went down to 3.5 last year. The strikeouts went down a smidge, but not really all that much. So David Robertson, this is a guy, doesn't seem like he's going to slow down at all. Looks like he's going to be putting up some decent numbers according to the projections. ERA at a 4, FIP at a 4.12. I think you could beat those. David Robertson, man. Hey, overall, a great signing. And if we take a look at the Texas Rangers, they really needed something for this bullpen. Really needed something for this bullpen. You got Jose Leclerc there. He really emerged last year as the guy. We saw it in the postseason. This guy really stepped up for him. The bullpen had their struggles last year. They really did. But they figured it out in the postseason, and that is what matters at the end of the day. That Rangers bullpen got crapped on a lot last year, man. So much. But they figured it out, right? And Jose Leclerc really emerged. He's in the last year of his contract before he hits free agency. So let's see, right? Let's see what happens with this bullpen this year. You're essentially replacing Aroldis Chapman with David Robertson. But I think it's good they added a veteran, right? A veteran guy who's been there, done that, has the experience. There's something about veteran relievers to me. If they're still good to go, they just provide that stability. Right? It's not just what they can do on the mound, but just the mental aspect of it as well. That's why I like this addition of David Robertson for the Rangers bullpen. It just gives them a veteran back there, right? You also added Kirby Yates. Kirby Yates, underrated season last year, 3.28 ERA, innings right at 60. So, they've added veteran guys, and let's see if that pays off for them this year. But what makes this interesting? What makes this interesting to me? What does this mean for the Rangers, right? So I've been wondering for a while now, what's going to be happening with the Rangers when it comes to spending money, right? I've said this like a million times. There is just always, this subject getting brought up. The TV money issue, the revenue, right? Bally Sports going bankrupt. The Rangers are one of the teams that are included in that network. So they're going to be, Amazon is going to be helping them out. They're going to be giving them, they worked something out to where the Rangers, it still hasn't been fully, I feel like, reported, but the Rangers should be getting a big lump sum of money this year to kind of help cover them for 24. But we're unsure about what happens in the future, right? So one thing I thought about, I was actually just thinking about this yesterday when it comes to the Rangers payroll, all right? So actually, they have not updated the payroll. And actually, I thought they had said here, okay, so it is pending a physical. So Fangraphs right now, it looks like they don't have the amount unless maybe I got to refresh. So they're still saying it's to be determined here, but the report is saying 11 to 12 million. Either way, that 11 to 12 million is going to put the Rangers over that CBT. And that was one thing I was thinking about. Well, okay, if the Rangers are having TV money issues, are they going to want to go over that CBT? Now, they have answered that question, and they will be over that CBT. At least for this year, they have some money coming off the book. They actually have a lot of money coming off the books next year. $13 million coming off for Scherzer, $13 for Heaney. Leclerc, like I said, is going to be a free agent. Yates, he's on a one-year deal. So you do have a lot of money coming off. And then Robertson, of course, as well. So it's interesting because the Rangers have now said that they're okay with paying some luxury tax. Again, that's for this year, right? And then you got a lot of money coming off next year, and even with DeGrom and Seager and Semien on the payroll, and who knows with Eovaldi too, he could end up coming off if he doesn't get the innings. So even with all these big contracts like DeGrom and Seager and Semien, they're still going to be way under it, right? So let's say it's $11 million for Robertson. That's going to bump it up to right around, probably around 245. So let's say like 243, 245, somewhere in that range. There's probably other little bits and pieces to be added on top of this number, including the Robertson deal. So you can essentially go over that CBT this year, because then next year, a lot of money coming off, they can reset, right? So does the TV money thing really affect them for this year? No, right? Because they're getting a lump sum, a lot of money coming off the books in 25. However, does this signing of David Robertson, does it mean that the Rangers are more willing to commit to these, shorter deals at this point, right? Everyone wants to joke on the Red Sox, but of course with the Rangers, it's kind of, as of right now, it feels like they're almost in a similar boat where, based off of their actions so far, it looks like they're going for like those short-term deals, 1-2 years, right? Mailey, they signed to a 2-year deal. Yates was a 1-year deal. Now Robertson is a 1-year deal. So are these signings showing us that this is what the Rangers' strategy is? Or they have now gone over the CBT? Or are they saying, okay, money is really not that big of an issue? I think it could go either way. It's interesting. I guess at this point, I don't know. I really don't know what I'll be honest with you. This is what I think personally. And I could be very wrong. You all know me. I'm definitely wrong a lot. And I am not afraid to admit that. But the fact that they have only been making these 1-year deals, bringing in Mailey on a 2-year deal, which kind of came out of left field because I feel like everyone forgot about Mailey, right? At this point, yeah, sure, Scott Boras is Scott Boras, but Scott Boras works for Jordan Montgomery at the end of the day, right? Scott Boras doesn't always hold out his guys until the end of the offseason, like the day before spring training. There's been many examples of Scott Boras guys signing very early, right? Scott Boras is not the end-all, be-all. Remember, Alex Rodriguez fired Scott Boras. Let's just say that. Right? Does anyone remember that when A-Rod fired Scott Boras? That was kind of a big deal, right? It was that whole thing where they were like announcing things. I think that was the same time when they were like announcing a contract during that. Was it the Super Bowl or the World Series? I think it was the World Series, right? I can't remember. But so Scott Boras is not the end-all, be-all. However, if Jordan Montgomery really wanted to go back to the Rangers, which I'm sure he would love to, right? Had a good season there last year. Obviously winning a World Series. Seems like everything was pretty jolly, right? Where's Jolly Olive when you need him? I just feel like you would have brought him back by now. I know Scott Boras is doing his thing, but if Jordan Montgomery really wanted to go back to Texas, probably would have figured this out by now. And if they're only doing these 1-year deals, 2-year deal for Mahle, I don't know, man. I'm wondering, what does this mean for Montgomery? Are they going to start moving on? Right? Remember, you will get DeGrom back later this year, right? He ended up getting Tommy John pretty early last year. So you could very well see DeGrom after maybe around the trade deadline. Or they could go the Walker Buehler route and they could just sit him for the whole year, right? And then he comes back in 25. So at that point, you're still going to have DeGrom for 3 years. So, yeah, you're paying him $40 million. But would it be worth it to just maybe sit him out for the year? I don't know. So I think personally, when it comes to the Rangers pitching staff, it's going to be interesting because there are a lot of injury concerns here, right? Not just DeGrom. Evaldi, right? That's why they had the vesting option for Evaldi. And I'll be honest with you, I feel like Evaldi really tries and balls out this year, right? He's going to do everything he can. He'll do the extra work to stay on the mound this year, right? Whether that's extra mobility sessions, right? Extra work in the massage room, right? Just anything he can do to keep himself healthy, right? A little extra fish oil before bed, right? Doing anything he can to stay on that mound this year because he does have that vesting option. So at the end of the day, Evaldi is playing for a contract. John Gray, I feel like, is going to be fine. He's had a couple of little nicks here and there. Heaney's always a bit of a question mark. Dunning, I feel like you can count on for innings at this point. Cody Bradford, he had 8 starts last year. Can he take that next step? You do have some guys down in the minor leagues at this point. Owen White had a cup of coffee last year, a very small cup of coffee, but I don't know. Are you going to be okay with going with Owen White? You got Cole Winn down there. Jack Leiter. I mean, who knows with Jack Leiter at this point? I'm thinking they were hoping Jack Leiter would be good to go by this point. Could you imagine if Leiter had been dominating in the minor leagues? That would be so helpful for them. Or could the Rangers essentially just maybe go add a cheaper option? I do think they would love to have Montgomery back. But at this point, if they're only going these smaller deals, 2-year deal for Tyler Mahle, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't spend on Jordan Montgomery. Right? At the end of the day, David Robertson is for the bullpen, right? And Montgomery's obviously for the rotation. So, but I'm just looking at it from just based off of the contracts that they're doing, right? And it's kind of a trend at this point. So if I'm looking at some starting pitchers that are still available, could they, Clayton Kershaw. I know Kershaw just had the shoulder surgery, but this is a guy they have been connected to for a while. He's in Texas. The Dodgers, at this point, I mean, you brought in Paxton. You got a lot of guys there now. I feel like if there is ever a time for Kershaw to go pitch for the Rangers, it would be this year, right? Whenever he's good to go, you could bring him in and again, if you're following that trend of the 1 or 2 year deals, you could essentially do that. There is Clevenger out there who you could go for a short-term deal. Lorenzen, we'll talk about him in just a minute. So, there are options out there that are cheaper if they are not willing to go, 4 or 5 years for Jordan Montgomery. I don't know. And again, maybe the dots aren't really connecting as much as I think they are. But again, just these 1-year deals, 2 years for Mahle. I don't know, man. It's intriguing to me. It's intriguing. And, I could talk about Jordan Montgomery with my Red Sox, but at the end of the day, who else is that? What other team is there for Jordan Montgomery? Right? I feel like at this point it's Rangers, Red Sox. Maybe another team steps up, a surprise team like the Cubs or the Phillies, right? Maybe the Angels or Giants come out of nowhere and go for it, right? I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. So let's talk about another bullpen option out there. And this was an option that I thought could have been a solution for the Rangers. So I guess at the end of the day, they figured, all right, David Robertson, 11 to 12 million for 1 year. If the Red Sox had paid about $4 million for Kenley Jansen's contract, well, then that could have been an option. But most likely they would have had to send back maybe some prospects. Who knows if maybe the Rangers had discussed Kenley Jansen with the Red Sox, right? But I would think at that point that, they're probably thinking, we can just sign David Robertson for probably around the same money we would pay for Kenley, and we won't have to give up any prospects, right? Not like you would have to give up a lot for Kenley Jansen. But now, an interesting one came out here today. The Royals are exploring the trade market for high leverage relievers. I thought this was really interesting. Because it never dawned on me that the Royals could maybe be an option for someone like Kenley Jansen. And, well, why am I talking about Kenley Jansen here, right? Because now, like I said, you have pretty much, there's not much left when it comes to the relief pitching market. You do have Ryan Brazier. I'm very interested to see where he goes because he did really well with the Dodgers. I'm wondering, I don't know, are teams like a little scared off with him? Maybe they're not sure of him. Maybe they thought, okay, well, he was good with the Dodgers, but I don't know. You still got Neris out there. He was connected with the Yankees at one point. You got Alexander. You got Mayton. But other than that, like, you're really having to dip into some lower tier guys. I mean, there is someone like a Keenan Middleton who's interesting, a lot of velocity. All right, Ryan Stanek came up today. My Red Sox were even interested, or they were among those teams interested. So there are guys, but when I'm thinking of high-level guys, there's not really much left now with Robertson going to Texas. So this is where you start to look at the trade market, right? Clase is the big one. That's the big name. If anyone could land him, that's amazing. I think the Dodgers would be amazing. You got Tanner Scott on the Marlins, 1 year left. They got a new president of baseball operations now who came from the Rays, where they like to deal guys that are very close to free agency. They, look what the Rays did with Tyler Glasnow, obviously. So Tanner Scott could definitely be an option for teams out there. Maybe the Marlins want to keep him. I don't know. I feel like we haven't heard much about Tanner Scott, but the guy that is available right now that has been on the trade block is Kenley Jansen. And it never dawned on me like the Royals could maybe be an option for him. Because when you look at the Royals, when it comes to the projections for the bullpens for next year, they're 28th overall in the projections right now. Right? So you do got some options here, but there is only one guy with with a projected ERA under 4, Red Sox legend Josh Taylor. So yeah, and then you added Will Smith, of course, right? That was another one they made earlier in the season, right? But with Will Smith, how much are you really going to get out of the guy, right? So don't forget, you also brought in Nick Anderson, Chris Stratton too. So it's interesting because it looks like even with all the additions, they're still not having great projections. And if you bring in Kenley Jansen, that really gives you a veteran at the back. I mean, listen, Will Smith, fine. But if I got Will Smith, Kenley Jansen, I'm going with Jansen as the closer. That's just my opinion. So when I'm looking at the 28 ranking for the projections next year, along with what the Royals have been doing this offseason, adding a couple of guys like Waka and Lugo to the rotation, the relievers that I just mentioned, with Smith, with Stratton, right? So they have been making a lot of moves. Don't forget, someone like Matt Sawyer, they drafted in the Rule 5 draft from the Yankees as well. But there are definitely arguments out there for the Royals to maybe go make a splash, and they would only have Jansen for 1 year. So, again, like, I don't see them going after Clase. Could they go after Tanner Scott? I guess that's possible. But I don't know. I feel like Kenley could be an option here, and I have been told personally, right? I've got a couple of little birdies out there. I have been told personally that when it comes to Kenley Jansen, the few teams that have come up are the Royals, his old team, the Dodgers, and the Mets, right? And there was also another report. It was an LA radio station. Doug McCain on Dodgers Nation, he talked about it on his show. He said, what was the name again? I am so sorry. I am blanking on the name. It was David Vassay. David Vassay on LA AM radio or something. He said the Padres had also been connected with Kenley Jansen. So there is a market out there. And there was a couple other little interesting notes too, right? If I actually go pull up here. And this is kind of one of those accounts where, they're just sort of, it's one of those accounts that you have to be careful with. Let me go find it really quick. Everyone, while I'm pulling this up, if you can, hit that like button for me. The goal for tonight, we're at 85 likes at the moment. If you can help us get to 200, I mean, that's always the goal. That would be great if you can help us get there. Where is that report? I knew I should. Here it is. So, again, it's from one of these accounts that you have to be very careful with. Right? But they've had a couple of things this offseason. And the one thing I've noticed with this account, one MLB insider, is they seem to have a lot of Dodger news. They seem to be in the know when it came to all the Yamamoto and Ohtani stuff. If you go back and look at the tweets they were making tweets about those two guys, and everything was coming true. That's the one thing where they seem, whoever this is, maybe this is Andrew Friedman's burner, I don't know. Maybe this is, who knows? Maybe it's one of these Dodgers beat reporters or something. This is the burner account. So, but they've had a lot of Dodgers stuff. And if the Dodgers have been connected with Kenley Jansen, then I'm not surprised if this is kind of popping out there. Again, it's not a firm source. Take it with a grain of salt at the end of the day. But it was out that they're on the verge of trading Kenley. And again, they've had a couple of things right, but it feels like there is momentum building for Kenley to head to the Dodgers maybe. The Padres have added, some bullpen pieces this offseason. Maybe you could go for a veteran guy. If we were to go look at the Padres really quick, that's an interesting one where, again, they have some payroll stuff right now, so I don't know if that's really something they want to do, right? If we're looking at the payroll situation, you're looking at around $212 million as of right now, and the report was they wanted to try and stay under $200 million. So so I don't know what happens there, right? So you've already, like I said, you've already added a couple of bullpen pieces, so I'm not really sure. Maybe this, again, I've brought this up plenty of times before. Teams, when they hear that, let's say, like, for example, the Padres and the Dodgers. If the Padres had gotten word that the Dodgers were talking about Kenley Jansen, then it's not unusual for a team in the division to also go ring, ring, ring. Hey, heard Kenley Jansen is available. What are you thinking? All right. To try and not have a player go to another team in the division. So maybe that's what the Padres are doing. If you look at the bullpen, like I said, you've already added Yuki Matsui and Woo-Suk Go. So, and don't forget that you also got Enyel De Los Santos in a trade with the Guardians earlier this offseason, right? Don't forget they picked up Luis Patino. Don't forget about that. So I don't really think the Dodgers are there. I would honestly really think at this point you're probably looking at the Royals and the Padres. Sorry, I wouldn't count the Padres in this thing just because of the payroll stuff. I would think it's either the Royals or the Dodgers. If Kenley does go somewhere where it does seem like it's probably going to happen at some point. And then there was the Mets. That's also another thing. I don't know if I buy that, right? The Mets they're kind of checking in everywhere. They're looking to see what kind of deals could be out there. You got Edwin Diaz there with the Mets. I don't know about that, right? Kenley, I don't think would be a setup guy. To me, it makes a lot of sense. It feels like a move the Royals could make. And the Dodgers, too. And, according to, Doug McCain, he does the Dodgers Nation show. He did a poll for Dodger fans. Would you like to have Kenley Jansen come back? It looks like Kenley's stuff is looking a little better than it was near the end of his Dodgers career. So maybe a reunion could be in store there if the Dodgers are interested. I mean, hey, they must see something they like. And the one thing with Kenley Jansen, it still has some pretty good advanced numbers. He doesn't give up a lot of hard contact. Cutter still looks really good. So makes a lot of sense if the Dodgers want to go for him, but also makes a lot of sense for the Royals too. Because the Royals, they're, funny enough, we always say with the Red Sox, full throttle. But the Royals are going full throttle this offseason, So I'm going to keep my eye out here. If we're looking at what Kenley Jansen could cost, I'm going to wrap this up in a couple of minutes because I got to head over to Ballcap and we got to do our Barreled Up podcast. But if we were to do like a Red Sox-Dodgers trade, one thing you have to remember when it comes to Kenley Jansen is he's getting paid $16 million this year, but the projected numbers for him are looking like they're not going to live up to how much he gets paid. You're looking at maybe around $13 to $14 million when it comes to his field value for the projections, and we can actually go pull this up here. So if I pull up Kenley Jansen, right? And if you do want to have access to the player value timelines, you have to get the subscription for Baseball Trade Values. If you use my code HYDE, you get 10% off. So if I go look up Kenley Jansen, so right now, BTV, they're projecting right around $14 million worth of field value, and his remaining salary is $16 million. So you're looking at an underwater contract at that point. Last year, he was only worth $8 million, according to Fangraphs on what he did on the field. And he got paid $16. So he was worth half of what he was paid, right? They're projecting him for some better numbers for this coming year. So let's see. But when it comes to Kenley, you are looking at an underwater contract. And you're probably going to have to pay some money if you're the Red Sox, right? So if I go, let's say I put Kenley on the Dodgers. So let's do this. So Kenley is, again, like right in that -2 range. So if I threw in like $5 million, that would save the Red Sox $11 million, right? So if you threw in $5 million, you'd be able to get a couple, like 1 or 2 mid to lower level prospects. For the Dodgers, you'd probably have to go pretty deep into their farm system at that point to get, a couple of prospects. Maybe they could even pick up like like someone like a Gavin Stone, right? Something like that. Maybe you could work some kind of a creative deal. Maybe, and I even thought of this too, maybe you could even get a third team involved, right? The Red Sox are also looking for some starting pitching. So maybe Craig gets a little creative, gets a third team involved, and maybe that could be a way where the Red Sox, they could use another team to help attach some other pieces to get a piece. Maybe they attach the Mariners in this deal. Maybe the Red Sox and the Dodgers can send pieces to maybe go get a piece back from the Mariners. Maybe like a young guy like Bryce Miller or Brian Wu. Maybe that could happen. It's going to be interesting. One more bit of news before I get out of here. Michael Lorenzen, I mentioned him earlier. The Orioles are showing interest in him, according to John Morosi. For the Orioles at this point, it's like, what do you do? What do you do? You want to, Orioles fans, they want to make a splash, and they just can't. But Michael Lorenzen, if they were to add him, hey, you know what? It gives him depth. I like it. That could essentially just put him in the 5 spot. I like that move. I like that move. So, in the end, if Michael Lorenzen went to the Orioles, I think it would just, it would help them out for this season. I would like for them to add a solid piece at the top. That would be really nice. Maybe another thing to think about, if they added Michael Lorenzen, could that open up one of these other guys where maybe they could include them in a trade? Maybe. I don't know. But keep an eye out. Keep an eye out. And don't forget about DL Hall, too. DL Hall has been talked about maybe for the rotation. So maybe DL Hall could be a piece that you attach. I don't know. His name came up, right? The Orioles, I think, were talking about him today, saying that that they liked him for next year, and they were, I don't remember the exact quote, but they were looking for some good performance out of him for this coming year. Maybe they're talking him up a little bit. I don't know. But everyone, I'm going to get out of here. If you can on the way out, we're at 104 likes, everyone. If you can help us get to 200, I will love you forever. We're at 104 right now. Let's see if we can get to 200 by the time the stream ends. If you can, hit that bell notification, share the show, subscribe if you are new. And again, if you can, share the show for the people that were not able to tune in live. Everyone, I'm heading over to Ballcap. We're going to go talk about all the news lately, and we'll dive into it there. Everyone, if you're heading over there, I'll see you there. If not, I'll talk to you next time.